There was a personal story that I used to share with clients sometimes, and I was always surprised at how much impact it ended up having on how they saw themselves and what was possible for their lives. So I thought I would take some time today and share that with you. This kind of goes back to the whole idea of comparison. So, hi, I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thanks for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and click the little bell for notifications. And of course, if you've been here a while, thank you so much for being part of the community. So, the idea of sharing personal stories in a therapeutic relationship can be a little bit controversial, but I have always been kind of the mind that if somebody asked a question, a reasonable question, it made sense that I would be honest with them. And when you're working with survivors of trauma, you want to feel some level of safety in that they get it, and therefore they're less likely to judge you. So I decided very early on that if somebody asked, I would tell them that I was a survivor of abuse. Nobody ever really asked very many details, but if they did ask, like, what age were you or something like that, or who was your abuser, I would tell them. And it always helped strengthen their sense of trust and safety in the relationship. And I really never had anybody ask inappropriate questions or anything like that. But there was always, or often, another story that would end up coming up that, like I said, I was really surprised that this is the story that really stuck with them. And maybe because it was a little bit more of a story versus just an answer. So for people who have been abused as children, you often limit what's possible for yourself in your life. You think you're not capable, you think you're not good enough, you think that you're going to fail, all kinds of things, but we hold ourselves back. And so in so many of the clients that I've worked with over the years, I've worked with people who have had a dream, even if they don't call it a dream. They've had this pull towards something that they wanted in their life, but held themselves back. Felt like it was too late for them. They weren't smart enough or capable enough or talented enough or whatever enough. And so they held themselves back. And in one particular area, this showed up a lot in my work. And that was clients, predominantly women, and most of my clients over the years have been women, but women who had a desire to change their career or discover a career, go back to school, or go to college for the first time, maybe even finish their high school or get their high school GED and go on to college. So many different aspects of that would show up in the room. And so anytime that somebody would bring that up, I would share with them my journey. And this is where the comparing comes in. Because most people, I think reasonably so, to a degree, most people make an assumption about their therapist. And we do this with people in general, right? The whole idea of comparing. But people made assumptions about me in my role and my business, especially once I had my own business. But this happened long before I even had my own business. But people often made an assumption about how I got to where I was, including other people aside from clients, which the first time I heard somebody share that with me as a colleague, she worked in the domestic violence shelter. And when she shared with me what her assumption was, I was literally shocked. Like I didn't even quite know what to say. Like I sat with that. I had to process what she was saying. Like, what? But anyway, going back to clients. So I would end up sharing with them my educational journey in a sense. Mostly what I shared with them is how much fear I had, how much doubt I had, and yet there I was, their therapist. And then once I had my own practice, I was their therapist and had my own business. So, like I said, it would come up for them because they had this idea of something that they might want to do, but they were holding themselves back. And so what I would share with them is what I'm going to share with you. Now, I've shared some of this in different pieces before, but I've not shared I've not shared it in this context where this is the primary focus. So many of you probably know that my educational journey was not typical. Typical of some people, but not typical of what people thought of in terms of the assumptions they made about me. A white girl that seemed to be middle class, at that time anyway, who had her own business. So my educational journey early on was rough. I did well in school probably until about third grade, and it was all downhill from there. So I did not do well in school. Literally, I think it was fourth grade is when it kind of started to go downhill, and then in seventh grade it really started going downhill. I got in trouble. When I was in high school, I skipped school. My grades were not good. And there was this idea in my family. I come from a low income family. My grandparents became kind of low middle income, but my mom and I were below the poverty line. My dad was gone. I did have a stepfather, but he was one of my abusers, so obviously that wasn't a great situation. But growing up in my family, probably mostly because I got in trouble a lot and didn't do well in school, there was an expectation. And it was actually verbalized to me once by my grandmother. There was an expectation that I would drop out of school just like everybody else did for the most part. And I'd end up pregnant, quit school, and then live the life that my mom lived, basically. And I expected that to likely be true as well. Not consciously, but that was the reality. So when I was 16, I got pregnant, just like what was expected of me. And when I got pregnant, I thought, I'm going to finish school. My son was due in mid-August. And I thought, okay, so we'll be on summer break. My mom will help me. I'm going to finish school. And I was a junior at that point, I believe. So grade 11. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And I planned to go to summer school. I think it would have been like in June and part of July to catch up because of all the school I had missed, skipping school and all of that. So anyway, I decided I was going to finish. And then I think about a month later, I had to have an appendectomy. And at that time, you had to be out of whatever you were doing for a while. So I missed school, I don't know, for a couple of weeks or something. And I felt pretty hopeless. I wasn't quite sure. I took it as proof that finishing high school is just not what I was meant for. That I was meant to be a high school dropout, and that was it. But I wanted to go, and so I battled within myself about it, and I did go. And on that first day, I had to go to my counselor's office to get a pass into my classes because I had missed those days. And when I went in to talk to my counselor, she said, "Oh, well, I just assumed you dropped out." And I remember feeling dejected and a little abandoned in a way, and probably a lot of other things. But in that moment, it was reinforcement. Who am I kidding? My own counselor just expects me to drop out and doesn't bother to, check on it or anything. And I showed her my doctor's order or whatever, and she's like, oh, well, I'm sorry that whatever. But that was it. I think I went home that day, and I think that was the very last day. I didn't go back. And that was all the proof that I needed in my mind that that's all there was for my life. And then the rest of my educational process, after my second son was born, so I moved away from there just a few months later, or after my son was born. My husband was in the military and we were stationed in North Carolina. So then I got pregnant again and had my second son right after I turned 18. And I decided that I was going to go back to the high school. We had just moved into a new neighborhood. There was a high school pretty close. I called up the high school and said, what do I need to do to enroll? And I think she was surprised by somebody calling on their own to ask to enroll. So she asked me a bunch of questions, and she discovered I was 18 and said, I think this might be a good program for you. So she directed me to my local community college to complete a high school diploma program, which is different than a GED. It was actually designed to help you go through the same kind of curriculum to get your diploma. And I don't know technically what the difference would be, but that's what I did. So I enrolled in that. And I'm grateful that she directed me in that direction, because it definitely, having two small children under the age of 1.5, that was the best thing for me. But I didn't know where it was going to go after that. I didn't really believe it could go beyond that. But something pushed me. I wanted to go back. And I looked into some different options, and I came across a surgical technician program at the community college, and I decided I was going to do that. And then my marriage wasn't going well at that time, and things happened, and I didn't end up doing it. I moved back to Illinois, and I gave up on the idea because I took that again as proof and evidence that it's just not meant to be. Just not meant to be. My kids were getting a little bit older. I didn't know what was going to happen in terms of being a single mom. There's just a lot that was up in the air, and I kept thinking about it. I ended up mentioning it to the person I was with at the time, who is now my husband, and he pushed me. He was very encouraging, and he pushed me to go, and I was like, I don't know what I would go for. And in all reality, all those excuses were excuses because I was terrified. I was terrified. I didn't think I could do it. I did not believe I was smart enough. I didn't believe I was focused or determined enough. I didn't believe I was capable of taking community college classes and doing okay, doing well. But he pushed me in a loving way. He really pushed me. And I ended up signing up for a couple of classes, having no idea where that was going to lead. But the part that I share that with my clients, but what I really shared with them is how terrified I was, how deeply I believed that I would not be able to do it. And they obviously know, because I was their therapist sitting in that chair, that I did it. And I explained to them that at each stage, so at community college, when I went on to get my bachelor's degree, that I never anticipated I would ever be able to do. Nobody in my family had a bachelor's degree. In fact, my parents and grandparents, I don't even think finished middle school. I was terrified. And when I say terrified, I literally mean terrified. And I don't say literally like it's used a lot. I was terrified. I was nauseous. I was panicked in thinking about it. When I went to look at the textbooks, those huge textbooks, it's like, oh my God, I can't do this. I looked at, is it too late to drop out? Like all kinds of things. But I started with two classes that I read the descriptions of, and I thought, okay, this sounds interesting. And actually, it wasn't those two classes I found interesting. There were other classes that I found interesting, but in order to take those classes, you had to take these other two classes first. So I took one psychology class and one sociology class. And I was terrified. And then going on to bachelor's degree, terrified. was finding all kinds of reasons why I couldn't do it, why it wasn't the right time, including like the last thing that I was holding on to is that because my GPA was, I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't great because I still wasn't doing all that well. Because my GPA wasn't at whatever it needed to be to get an extra grant as a transfer credit into my bachelor's program, my excuse was, no, I'm going to retake this class. I got a D in it, a D in biology I had to miss because my dad died during that semester, and they have labs and everything. So anyway, I missed quite a bit. But I said, no, I'm going to retake this class so I can get my GPA up so I can get another $500 for transfer credit. And the woman that I was speaking to at the university, I was telling her, no, I think I'm going to hold off a semester. And she asked me why, and I told her, and she said, well, if that's all that's keeping you, we can make that up. And I was like, no, like I was trying to come up with some way that wasn't going to work either, because I was holding on to that. That's what I was telling myself. That's what I was telling my husband. Let me just take this class again at community college, because I wasn't ready. I was terrified. I did not want to fail. And I believed that if I tried to take a college class, that it would be proof that I was stupid. And then seeing the textbooks, oh my God. Looking at the curriculum, oh my God. I can't do this. But I did it. When I went on to get my master's degree, I had no intention on getting a master's degree. But I had a bachelor's degree in social work, and any job that I could get a bachelor's degree or as a bachelor's level social worker wasn't going to pay off my student loans for my bachelor's degree. It just wasn't. And so I decided to get my master's degree to put off paying my student loans for a while, which just added a lot more student loans. And so, but I was terrified again, absolutely terrified. Every semester, I just knew that was going to be the semester that would prove that I was not capable. And I shared that with my clients. And again, I didn't necessarily take that much time to share it with them, but it's the fear, the absolute, so deeply ingrained idea of just it not being my time, not being smart enough, not being young enough, not being practiced enough, not being whatever enough. That I held on to that. But each step of the way, recognizing that I was capable. And that if that is true for me, because I was not brilliant at school. Each level from community college to bachelor's to master's, I did improve in my GPA, but I improved not because I got smarter. I mean, obviously I learned more, but I improved because the more concentrated you are in what your studies are, hopefully you're much more interested. And the more interested you are, the more you take in, right? Like if you're reading a book and you're really interested, you're going to remember the book. If you're reading a book that you have absolutely no interest in and you think is stupid, you're likely not going to remember a whole lot of it. So even in my bachelor's program, there were a lot of classes I had to take that I didn't enjoy and wasn't very good at. But then in my master's program, all the classes were classes that I was interested in. But the point being that each step of the way, each time you put yourself out there, each time you step into that unknown and you push through that fear, you're able to see something about yourself. You're able to trust something about yourself that you didn't even know existed, that you thought you had to go out and build. But all of that is already inside of you. So whatever it is that you have been not doing because you think that you're not capable, You think it's too late. And it's not just about school or career. It could be about a new hobby, some sort of desire or dream that you've had that you've held yourself back from, thinking it was stupid or immature, not the right time, too old. Even a new career. Even if that means like kind of downgrading, so to speak. Like maybe you went to school to be a doctor or a lawyer and you realize you hate it. And maybe you want to run an animal shelter. It's not too late. And anything that you desire for your life, what you need to achieve it, what you need to be capable of achieving it, it already exists within you. It absolutely does. You just don't yet see it. And that's what this healing process in part is. It's about helping you see and connect to the truth that already exists within you. The reality is that I'm not smart in a lot of things. Algebra, unless it's specifically related to something like sociological research, literally, I see letters and numbers together that are supposed to mean something, and it makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. There are a lot of things that I'm not very good at. We don't have to be good at everything. We can't be good at everything. We can't. But the things that you want for your life, the things that you want to do, the things that you want to achieve, you have that inside of you already. And as you heal, as you begin to open to the possibility of your enoughness, of your innate worthiness, of the reality that just because you've not achieved something that you thought you wanted to achieve or that you tried to achieve before, that it has no bearing on who you are or your capacity to achieve it now. When you can see that as being true for you, then you recognize, you get to experience a life and things that you have shut yourself off of because you didn't think you could, or maybe didn't think that you should. So what is it for you? And it could be something like, the time isn't right. Once I finish this, then I'll try it. Maybe when the kids are grown, or maybe when I've saved enough money, or maybe when I get this work project done. If I had just gone into this field instead. None of that really matters. If you wanted to be an Olympic athlete, it's possible that that time may have passed. But almost anything else, or valedictorian of your high school, obviously that time has likely passed. But you don't have to be valedictorian of your high school to achieve what you believe that being valedictorian of your high school would have given to you. So what is that for you? I'd love for you to share in the comments. Let us support you and cheer you on. One of the most incredible feelings that I've had as a therapist is when somebody has shared with me. Sometimes it's in our work together, and sometimes at this point it's been years later. When somebody shares with me that they went back to school, and that hearing my story and how afraid I was and how horribly I did in school, to hear them say that they went back, or that they went for something that they had told themselves they just could never do. That is an incredible feeling. Because it's not about whatever it is that you achieve, it's about giving yourself an opportunity to see the truth and connect with the truth of who you are, of all that is possible already within you. Thanks for watching. Again, if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to do so. Click the little bell for notifications. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up so other people can find it too. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time.